Hi, everyone. Thanks for those who are here. If you guys are walking by, we're doing some conversations today about technology and brand experiences and how what audiences are looking for. So come join us. But I am our CMO at IR Code, Brittany Hershkowitz, and I am so excited to have Jules Staveley here from a global brand experience director from Cheerful 21st. So welcome.
Thank you.
So I would love for you to just give a little intro about yourself and Cheerful and kind of tell everyone what you do.
Hi, everyone. So I'm Jules. I'm the Global Brand Experience Director at an agency called Cheerful 21st. We're based and headquartered in London, and we've got offices in New York and Cannes. And for us, the juice is how do we create impactful brand experiences for our clients and really work with them to deliver events and activations that really drive home their KPIs, but also are rooted in a strategy around what they're trying to do with their audience rather than just throwing an idea out there and hoping that it sticks. So yeah, that's a little bit about me.
Yeah, and we were just talking, and I think that it's we're going to dive into some of the stuff you're seeing here because obviously South by is the prime spot when it comes to brand experiences. But what I'd really love to start with, because I had my background for a while in brand experiences and events, and I think the world has shifted significantly in the past 5 years when it comes to how to really break through. So my first question is really about, there's so many platforms that are competing here. So how are you seeing audience behaviors or what they want in an experience shift?
Yeah, it's a really interesting question. So although COVID is kind of a long distant memory, I think I still feel a bit hungover from it. I don't know about anyone else here. I think what we're finding is convenience is now everything, right? And convenience is an amazing commodity, but we're finding that brands that are hitting the mark are doing that convenience with purpose and actually coming up with ideas that are impactful but also drive sort of an experience and actually speak to an audience. I've been around South by for the past few days, and I've been with some of my colleagues to a few activations, and I find myself standing there going, why, how does this work? So some fantastic stands, it's all very nice, it's very beautifully branded, but no one's actually having a deep and engaging conversation with that brand. And in most cases, people are taking their own photos or their own assets rather than being driven through something where they can have more of a multi-sensory experience. So I think from our perspective as an agency, and the reason we're out here is to quite shamelessly see what everyone else is doing, because we do a lot of work in other tentpoles, is to try and work and build a lot of those insights and bring those back to the clients that are interested at potentially being at South by Southwest and giving them reason to be able to do that, but effectively be one step ahead of what we think is the current competition. So yeah, I think for us, it's how you navigate that world. And I think to your question around what it's been like in the past few years, I think we'll all agree that the pressure on us for ROI is bigger than ever, and how do you measure that? And I think what we're looking at is ways that you build a brand experience that has a full kind of halo effect to it and a full reasoning behind why you're doing all these things, and there's a strategy around it. We find as an agency, our kind of mantra is audience above all. So if you put your audience at the heart of everything you do, you're usually onto a good winner. I would say what I've seen this week probably doesn't bear all of that out at all times.
And I do want to dive into that. Before we do, you mentioned this new appetite that you need to appeal. And when we talk about audience first, I think the world that we're living in when it comes to brand marketers it's a challenge. I guess speaking from, putting this off and doing everything this week, we're constantly thinking about the different levels of engagement throughout that journey. So it's not just a one-stop shop, but it's really about creating that full picture experience as you're talking about. Talk to me a little bit about technology and how you've been leveraging technology to increase that for your brand work.
Yeah, it's a great question. I mean, one of the big activations we do every year is in the south of France, in Cannes. And for the past few years, we've delivered this huge activation called Stagwell Sport Beach. They came to us 2 years ago, and their brief was, how do we stand out in a crowded market? And if any of you have ever been to Cannes Lions, there's a lot of drinking, rosé, navel gazing, thought leadership, but no one really pushes the boat and kind of tries to deliver beyond that. So what we did with Stagwell is we basically said to them, when everyone zigs, you need to zag. You need to come up with something that's really important and really cuts through all of that noise. And we landed on this concept of building a sports stadium in the south of France. And the beauty around sport is it doesn't matter about language barriers. You can play pickup with someone who is from the other part of the world, and you can connect around a constant theme. And to your question around technology, we've now built the entire beach so that it is rigged everywhere with RFID tagging systems. So we're able to, in real time, speak to our client and say, this part of your activation is really quiet at the moment, or it was quieter this morning. Maybe we can put something on the screen. Maybe we can get voice of God to kind of drive people to that engagement. And we can give them tools in real time to be able to, affect what's happening with the event, as opposed to a week later during the wash-up going, oh, I wish we'd pushed that harder, or we've got a client or a partner that wasn't entirely impressed with what we did. So we built that with partners like Cvent, and then we're able to really give holistic and in-depth information to our client in real time, which I think is a real game changer versus everyone sitting around going, what do we think? Did everyone have fun? And I think that's just not really going to cut it anymore.
I think when we think about event experiences, we forget that there is that measurable piece to it, right? And I think it's so fascinating the way that you guys are designing those metrics in real time to pivot, because I don't think that that's really something that we've seen a lot in experiential. I think we're just starting to see the first part of it, but being able to come and say this activation and have a scenario be on that of how we can pivot it in real time is an advantage to any brand that is trying to really maximize their reach at that experience, right? Or create multiple experiences within. When we think about it at IR Code, part of that is, one, protecting the integrity of the design and creativity that your team does without having to use, the bold-faced QR codes. That it sucks when you do that and you spend all this money on these big events, and then that's what your customer is actually the experience that they have, so using your own creative. But also creating a second layer of immersive digital experience. So how do you take something physical, like a pickup game, but add an interactive digital layer on it, so maybe there's a game that they get at home as a follow-up, right? And adding those pieces too. But I do want to hear, because I am excited for this, and we were talking about before, what are you seeing here when it comes to experiential? What is successful? What has been misses? You don't have to name names, but...
Okay. I probably won't name ones that I didn't think were very good, but I will name one that I thought was really good.
Right. Yeah.
So I thought the Hulu FX Aliens activation near the Westin was really, really good. And one of the reasons for that, I thought, was that there was quite a lot of immersive theater and cinema brought to it. So for anyone who didn't go to it, you kind of queue up, you walk in, and there's this fuselage of a dropship that looks like it's basically crash landed, and there's sort of alien detritus everywhere, and it's kind of a little bit spooky, a little bit eerie. But for every moment through it, from the moment you walk in, you're given your kind of pass. So you're kind of part of this kind of small crew that have to go in and find out what's going on. So from the very first moment, you feel almost like, okay, this is quite serious. And there's people in fatigues kind of shouting at you, and people in hazmat suits. And for me, I had the whole way around the experience a smile on my face. And I'm a bit of an Aliens fan anyway, but just the way that they took you around this small activation, and I think from start to finish we were through it in 3 or 4 minutes, but it left a lasting kind of impact, and I think they were able to control the narrative as to when they pushed you through and when they pulled you and all of that. And I think versus one of the ones, or a few of them I've seen this week, where it's like they've just dropped all of their assets into a location and just opened the door and said, have a look around. And I think there aren't necessarily drawbacks to that, because I think it's good to have your brand, but I do feel that if you've gone to all of that sort of effort, why is there no brand experience? Why is there no ability to be part of something, to do more than just look with your eyes? Can you use your hands? Can you smell something? Is there something that's interesting? Is there a surprise and delight moment? It could just be someone that jumps out and scares you, but you won't forget that. So it's been an interesting week, and I think the majority of what I've seen, I'm not sure would necessarily answer what we would want to do as an agency and what we push our clients to do. And one of the big things we do is when we sit with a client, we tend to not ask them what they want. We ask them why they want it. Because most brands we work with, bless them, their C-suite are like, we have to be here, we have to do this, I want to be there, I want tickets to the Super Bowl, so I'm going to activate. Fine. We all know the pressure comes from above. But then when we're working with these teams, we're really trying to glean, actually, how is it that we can make a step change? How can we affect your brand, and how can we make it stand out? And I feel this week there's quite a few misses if I worked for that brand. But the final irony might be they thought it was great. But we at the agency, we're much more about how do we measure that? How can we show that?
Yeah, there's a lot of education still, right? I think that, when you think about this experience where you have brands who spend so much money on activations and build outs, but then it lands at that, and that's all that it is. It's an awareness play, it's come experience it, check out X, Y, and Z, and that checks the mark. When we're not thinking about brand experiential in terms of the entire marketing ecosystem and how you can connect the dots from your experiential to then your call to action or your purchasing in real time or what you want your end goal for your consumer to do. And sometimes I think at spaces like this, it's a lot of industry people and we are all so close to it. So we see it and we do it, but we have to think of experiential in terms of the actual customer, right, at the end of the day. So is immersive technology a must for an experience? Talk me through your perspective on that. From my perspective, of course, working for a technology company, I think everyone should have IR code now at their activation. But is that a key piece that you guys are like, this is a check off the box now? Like we need to make sure we have something that brings people in closer to the experience?
Yeah, I would say in the majority, having some kind of immersive and technology in your activation is really key. But I would say if you look at the activations that are happening around here, there's one later this evening that's taking place at the Powder Room with Redbreast. That is a really, really cool bar, but you're not allowed to bring your phone in there. And one of the reasons I love that, and it's the same with Joe Rogan's comedy shop, they make you put your phone in this kind of bag and turn it off, is that it actually brings you back to what we're all about, which is we're human, right? Human first, and the technology is a great aid. It's a great way of being able to open up all those opportunities, and even with your product to kind of add all those layers in. But ultimately, we're human at heart, and I think that interaction and being able to have those relationships is the key. And I think, our head of strategy, Georgina's here, she would say, and in all our meetings is what we say is, what about your audience? What's your strategy for them? And then all of the kind of bells and whistles and things that you need will be important, but are secondary. So really trying to understand what that event is, because I think too many people just throw lots of tech at it. And I've seen this week some really cool tech, but again, it doesn't answer what I think is. I'm kind of standing there going, well, what is this? What am I doing with this?
Yeah, and the event journey is increased right now. Yeah. You have a potential because of the interactivity between a digital experience and in real life. You can now make an event that is just showing up in one location over a weekend have much more legs if you do a pre-event roll into to kind of really create what that excitement's going to be on site, and then a post-event to kind of really keep the communication going. And the brands who do that right are maximizing the experience.
100%. And the way that we've worked with brands is, for us, it's all about the halo effect. If you're just going to turn up at an event, and I know why South by Southwest is like that. It's meant to be, you turn a corner and, you see an activation. So I do get, for some brands, that's the kind of hook. But the brands we work with, we're always speaking with them about how can you elongate that halo and make it longer and have people know about what's coming, be part of it, and then have that conversation after it. So you're getting so much more out of it. We've just done an activation for a fintech company, and their brief was, we want to get in the face of big banks and show that we're a kind of a small but mighty player. So we came up with this idea of a donut truck, and we parked this donut truck outside the biggest banks in Chicago, New York, and Boston. And there was no tech. And what actually secured it for the audiences, and we had queues around the block, is we made sure that the coffee and the donuts we served in each city were from their beloved sort of donut shops. So in New York, it was Peter Pan Donuts. when word got round that Peter Pan donuts are being handed out outside Bank of America or outside, the queues are just insane. So I think they loved that because for them it wasn't about tech, it was just putting one over on the big guy and having this bright fluorescent yellow truck parked outside. But we used tech a lot to actually work out where that was going to go. So we spoke to quite a few teams that could heat map parts of New York when it's at its busiest, especially in a post-COVID age. And then we were able to advise the clients to where to put it. But as an actual activation, it was pretty mono. There was no bells and whistles, but I think it was just as effective. So I think the immersive side and the tech side will always be part of what we have, and everyone in their pocket will take out a phone, so being able to have something that can interact with that is always crucial. But I'd always come back to, the audience, and if we can also try and sort of work towards the human side as well, I think that's always going to be a really nice balance, and I think ultimately is what makes us who we are. Because the tech will always be there, but it's how do we talk to the human within us?
Yeah, and it's the role it's playing, right? And that could be behind the scenes where it is about the metrics and it is about making sure that the strategy is right, and it is making sure that you're showing up in the right place at the right time and you know that behavior of that audience so you know it's going to be successful. Or it could be about the actual experience on site and making it more immersive and making that actually happen. So last question for you. I would love to know what you're most excited about in the experiential space that you're seeing, that you guys are talking about as a team.
Gosh, how long's the hall open for? I mean, I think for us, the brands that we're working with at the moment, the really exciting part is ones that want to put their audience first and have a really strategic message behind what they're doing. And we are in a slightly beneficial position that we can turn down work if we're not feeling it, and I think that's really important that we don't just do any work that's out there. But I would say being able to, what we're finding, that the briefs that are exciting us are ones where we can really bring all of the sort of senses to life and actually touch on each one of them. And I still feel there's a long way to go in this industry where that thought isn't there enough. It's kind of, let's just do the event and everything's about doing that rather than all of the journey before that and how you can create that. So I think that's going to be really big, and I think technology will always play a huge role, and what the likes of what you guys do and the dreaded 2 words AI is also going to bring to the table. But I think where we're always going to be as an agency is trying to link it back to some kind of human interaction, and I think if you lose sight of that, it doesn't really work, and a robot can't teach you or give you an experience, but another human interaction with people or being in that environment with other people, with all of that noise around you, I think is where it is going to happen. So, yeah.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much, and I agree with you. I think human, especially in events, there's no way to do it without it. So thank you for joining us. Thank you guys so much, and we'll be hosting happy hour here at 3 o'clock. So come by and hang out.